Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jennifer Reeve and I am an expert in ICBC insurance. I worked for ICBC for 34 years and then I went into the private industry for the last 5 years. I'd love to be your mentor and help you understand the products and processes of ICBC. As with anything I train, all information is subject to change, and I always ask the participants to check with the current ICBC auto plan policies and procedures to ensure the content is still accurate. As well, the insurance acts, insurance tariffs, commercial transport, and all the other relevant acts I refer to are subject to change. And again, it's your responsibility as a professional broker to make sure the information is current. Okay, thank you for joining us as we go into this insurance journey and go right in depth on artisan use. Artisan use is rate class 0112, rate class 150, and 151. So normally I'd throw in a poll and ask, how confident are you in discussing artisan use with your clients? So between 1 and 10, where do you feel? So if you're anything below 6, this course is for you, right? Because we're going to take that in-depth look and compare artisan to business use and make sure that your customer walks away with the correct rate class. So artisan use, where did it originally come from? Well, when ICBC introduced it, it was to encompass several different vehicle uses, but specifically they had in mind of municipal government use. So like all the cities, regional districts. However, the wording was written quite broadly. As you can see, it included a tradesperson. Since then, ICBC has pulled out those municipal government vehicles and created a rate class 015 specifically for them. But this still left us with a problem in that artisan use in its general description talks about a tradesperson, and that definition is nowhere found in the Auto Plan Procedures Manual, but it is found in the dictionary, and that's what I show on this slide. Okay, now we're taking a look at how the wordings appear in the ICBC Procedures Manual. What I like to do is I like to print this paper out. If you're brand new, you can get it from the ICBC Procedures Manual and then highlight those areas that are important to know. So for instance, this is artisan use and it's 5,000 kg or less. So what that tells me is if this vehicle, if the GVW is 6,000, it doesn't matter if the gentleman is using it for artisan use and meets the definition. He cannot have rate class 012 because his GVW is in excess of 5,000. So that's the first point. Then we go in and this is everything he can and cannot do with this rate class. So first thing you'll notice, very common through many, is that parents are not restricted in taking their children to and from school. So even normally you would think, well, if they're driving to school, that would be rate class 002. However, ICBC has allowed that if you are an artisan and you're dropping your children off at school or you're driving other children of school age off to school, then you will not be in breach of your insurance. So it actually says you can do that. So a child of school age, well, that's a child that's usually what, under 18 years old? Also, it goes in and says your grandparents, if your grandparents or someone living in the household, again, allowed to drive those children of school age. But what it does here is number 2 says it does not apply, this exemption does not apply if the driver is enrolled in a school. So let's say 4 days a week you use your vehicle, you're a painter, you're therefore an artisan, you're carrying all your paint cans, all your goods, but on Fridays you go to school. So you're not allowed that, you're driving yourself to school. So that is not allowed under this rate class. And again, number 3, this one includes pleasure. So right there, you can use it for pleasure. I know I've had a lot of people say, well, my vehicle is definitely artisan use, but can I, on the weekends, can I go up to the lake with the vehicle? Can I go shopping with it? And the answer is yes. And I would have you read thoroughly through each of these. I'm just highlighting those that I feel is important. So again, number 4 is reiterating that a customer is not allowed to drive their vehicle to or part way from school if he's enrolled in it again, because of a course or it's a requirement to keep his certification up. So again, if that happens, we have to look at changing that rate class because 0112 does not allow to and from school. So maybe look at 002, that's to and from work or school. Whichever is the highest basic premium, that's the rate class you're going to choose, and always make sure you make notes in the agent's comments. So this is a definition, again, that we find for artisan use, under 5,000 kg. So we're talking about rate class 0112. So artisan use means a vehicle used by a tradesperson. So we already know there's no definition of tradesperson in the ICBC manual, procedures manual, so you have to look where in the dictionary. The artisan then also has to carry the tools of the trade, materials and equipment necessary to perform those duties. So what's the carriage or tools? Well, as in these pictures show, if it's an electrician, it's going to be the wires, right? The tools to actually install them. If he's a painter, he's going to carry cans of paint. If he's a roofer, he's going to have all the roofing material, the roofing slates, like all of the material. And also, the artisan is allowed to have the delivery of goods that are to be installed by using his or her trade. So what's their trades? If they're a gyprock, then they have to carry the gyprock mud, the tools to put the gyprock on, like the mudding, but also the gyprock itself. If they're in a car, then they certainly cannot carry gyprock because it won't fit in a car. Therefore, they would not qualify as this definition. An artisan is also allowed to do incidental estimating. So they happen to be at the site and they'll say it's a painter and they'll say, you know what, I know you're painting this room. Can you give me a quote on this other room for me? That is allowed. That is incidental. So their main purpose is to show up and paint, but now they've been asked to do some incidental estimating. Absolutely allowed. Now, if we go back to number B, it says delivery of goods. It doesn't say all the time. So there may be opportunities where the gentleman, let's say he is a gyprocker and he has his pickup truck, right? I know this is a roofing truck, but imagine he's carrying gyprock. And Home Depot says, hey, we're already going to that house. Let us deliver your product on and yours. Absolutely, you can accept that because it's not happening all the time. So again, he wouldn't be in breach, but we have to make sure that the vehicle that he's insuring is capable of doing the carriage of the tools and materials, the delivery of the goods, and incidental estimating. If they does not qualify, what would he be? Probably driving to and from work. So if he's just an employee and Joe there takes all the materials and goods, he's to and from work. His job might be that of a tradesman, but his vehicle would not qualify as artisan use. So normally, if we were doing this live, I would give you a poll question to say, hey, I've got little Johnny here, and little Johnny is a heavy-duty mechanic, but he's required to do so many hours a year to keep up his qualifications. So he goes back to the university and spends a week driving to and from the university in order to keep up his certification. Is that allowed under rate class 012? So he is a bona fide tradesman. He's a heavy-duty mechanic. He carries all the tools and equipment with him. He's like a roadside mechanic, looks after vehicles broken down on the highway, but he's going to accreditation school to keep his hours. And is that allowed under rate class 0112? And the answer is no, because it's not considered. You're not allowed to do that. Under all ICBC rate classes, the requirement is always to choose the rate class that commands the highest basic annual base premium. So that's the $200,000 when we talk about highest basic, so $200,000. And again, it's looking at a customer can use it for several different purposes. So when it happens, perhaps on the weekend, this van is used to maybe deliver pizzas. Well, that's a delivery rate class use. That is not allowed under artisan use. So 5 days a week, he's a true artisan, but the other 2 is delivering pizzas. Or in this economy, a lot of people are doing 2 jobs during the week. So what happens with the rate class? How do we handle that? Well, that's when we look at what is the highest exposure to ICBC? What is the highest basic premium? So in my example of pizza delivery, that would be delivery use. So I would compare the basic premium of 0112 against the rate class for delivery use, which is 013. Whichever's the most expensive, that's the one I choose. And in the agent's comments, I would put vehicle used to deliver pizza and is an artisan use. And I'd even go as far to say, and he's a general electrician. Our customers may use their vehicle for other purposes, and they're giving back to the community is one great example. So ICBC does have it written, and you can actually find it in the regulations. When a vehicle is used outside of its rate class, but if it's used for volunteering, it does not breach the rate class of whatever is chosen. So here's the actual section that I've pulled, and here's some examples of organization. I actually work for the Red Cross. I use my vehicle. I will go out and visit customers. I've delivered money to customers. So here it says a volunteer driver may, without breaching a condition, operate a vehicle being used for the purpose of carrying or delivering goods without charge on behalf of the organization. And I also get paid a small fee for my mileage. That is not considered being reimbursed. I don't get paid. I'm not a paid employee. I'm volunteer and they pay for some of my expenses. Therefore, I don't have to change my rate class. So if my vehicle is artisan use and I get called out and maybe I go and help seniors and I take food to the seniors, that's delivery use, but I'm volunteering. I will not be in breach of my insurance and I won't have to change my insurance. So we've talked about artisan use. We talked about a tradesperson. I love this slide because this gives us some great examples of who artisans are. So a cable installer, those are the guys you see, Big Shaw, Rogers, they'll have the big blue vans and they've got all the wires and cutters in the back. Definitely an artisan. He's a tradesman, right? Carpet layers. If they have a van or they have a pickup truck and they actually carry the carpet with them, the lino with them, they are, right? They are artisans, no question. So again, carries and installs it. A gardener, an outdoor gardener, again, maintains gardens, right? A lot of landscapers, they carry all the tools and equipment with them. Mobile mechanics, really common in my area. So again, usually they got the pickup truck, they got big boxes that are welded onto the back, full of all the tools. They carry it all. Now, remind the customers, and again, make sure you put notes, that though you're asking the questions, do you carry the tools and equipment, make sure they understand that they're not insured for their tools and equipment. That's a separate policy we go to private for. So again, a great way to help your customer out, but make sure they understand that does not cover their tools and equipment. The only time equipment is ever covered if it's permanently attached to a vehicle, and we'll talk about that in another course. So here are some great examples of those that qualify. Okay, so this is a quick quiz time to see how you're doing so far in listening. So if Jack is a supervisor of a crew of plumbers who are working at several different job sites, and then he drives his pickup truck to the job sites. So Jack's in, he's got his pickup truck, and he's looking to be rate class 0112. He says he is a plumber, and he often carries the tools, materials, and equipment of his trade in his vehicle. He visits sites daily, different sites, and checks on the crew and make sure they're doing okay, may conduct some estimates. Jack does not deliver any goods to be installed, and typically he does not perform the plumbing work himself unless it's a necessity, right? So he's been asked to help. Does he qualify for rate class 012 artisan use? So I'll give you a minute to think about that. So the answer to that poll is no. He's actually going to be probably business use. He's doing estimating. He's checking on his crew. He's probably using his vehicle as a write-off. So it's being used for business purposes. He's not an artisan because he's not carrying the materials to install. Right? So that's a great example. You could, if you felt that he's to and from work, well, you are allowed to do up to 6 times a month for business. So again, check with him, see how often he's using his vehicle. But based on what I saw there, I would feel more comfortable rating him business use 007. And as we go through this, if you're at all uncertain, you can work with your client by doing a checklist. This is a document that you can find under Job Aids under the ICBC portal. It's called an APV 325, and it's a checklist. And or what I like, it's a great way to avoid an E&O, which stands for errors and omissions. So you're asking the customer, are you a tradesperson, right? Do you drive? So all the questions that helps to know, is this a true artisan or not, right? Should there be a claim in the future and the adjuster feels that our customer did not qualify as an artisan use, we can pull this out and show them that we went over this. And on the flip on the bottom sides, it tells you how they answer. If the customer answers no, then he is not an artisan use. Earlier in the definition, I've been talking about goods and tools and materials. So it's a little bit ambiguous for sure. But in order for an artisan to apply to be a tradesperson, they are required to carry in their vehicles both the goods to be installed and then the tools, materials, and equipment necessary for them to actually perform their duties of their trade. And that phrase can be a little bit ambiguous, right? So let's make sure we break it down to understand the intent. So what are tools? Tools include like the clamps, the wire cutters, screwdrivers, materials, wire fittings, right? Ladders, all that. But the goods are then going to be like the actual light fixtures or the electrical panels, the ceiling panels, in other words, that finished products. I always like to explain what isn't an artisan. So we spent some time here saying who qualifies for an artisan, some examples of what an artisan is, but let's take it to the other route. You know, we could argue that any of these individuals carry their tools, but the ICBC underwriters have confirmed they are professionals. They are not tradesmen. So a cameraman, which we have a lot in the Lower Mainland, and actually even in the Okanagan, I've seen some sites set up. Guess what? They're professionals. So they do not qualify for rate class 01 to artisan use. Cosmetician, so a makeup artist, right? Landscape designer, right? Hairdresser. Yes, they carry all the tools, but they're considered a professional. So there's a few examples there to take a look at. Mobile disc jockey, right? Sure, but they provide music at some functions, but that's a business. They're not considered tradesmen. Okay, let's take another quick poll just to make sure I still have you engaged. What rate class do you think this customer should be? So Jackie is an electrician, works for an air conditioning company which specializes in large commercial installations. Typically, she stays at one job for extended periods, maybe even days, weeks at a time, till that project's finished. Jackie drives to the work site each day carrying her personal tools, materials, and equipment with her, but all the goods to be installed are delivered separately. In her current position, Jackie is not required to give any estimates. So what do you think she is? Do you think she qualifies? She's definitely a tradesman, right? She's an electrician. In this case, the answer is no. She is not an artisan. She's actually business use, or she could be to and from work, depending on if she's using her vehicle for a write-off, getting paid to use her vehicle. Because the big thing is she is not carrying the goods to be installed. They're already at the site. Now, if we were doing this course in person, I'd stop and ask you to use a word cloud to tell me what questions you think we should ask the customer to determine what rate class they should be in. And by that, I mean we're looking for open-ended questions. And if you've never experienced or understand what that is, it is the who, what, when, where, why. And I have a course on that too. But the point is that in order to get the customer to speak with us, we have to really engage them. And how do we get them to answer in a sentence versus a yes, no, which really doesn't give us that in-depth information we need? And that's by open-ended questions. Who? What are you using the vehicle for? When are you using the vehicle? Where? Why? What weight is it when he's fully loaded with all his equipment and tools? What about the value of the vehicle? Does it include a crane? Because the value of a vehicle includes all permanently attached equipment, and ICBC pays on actual cash value, not what the customer has put in the books for his accountant. So asking questions is crucial information to ensure our client obtains the correct rate class. I've also used the feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Others have felt the same way, but they found that you're actually driving your vehicle to and from work and you don't qualify as artisan use. So again, important to make all the notes in your agent's comments. If you don't have enough room, you can go back on the policy and do actions new note, and now you can put a full reasoning, a whole discussion of what you had with your customer about what you learned from them and why they qualified or didn't qualify for the rate class that you assigned them. Okay, just when you think you understand what an artisan is, let's take a look at this scenario. We have got pictures of porta potty, but this time your customer says, you know what rate class should I be? So what I need to know is, what questions would you ask, right? So again, a great example of those open-ended questions. What are you using the vehicle for? What do you do with this unit? Who else uses the unit? Where do you take it to, right? Are you cleaning these units out? Are you sucking the crap out, literally, right? Or what else do you do? Maybe he's just, like the blue ones here, maybe he's just dropping them off at the site and picks them up at the end of the day. Versus this nice fancy one up here, maybe he's showing up every 3 hours and pumping it out, cleaning and servicing them. That all makes a difference on what rate class they would have. And absolutely, one of these could qualify for artisan use. So if the trucks are hauling portable toilets to the sites, they're installing, dismantling, and servicing them, they actually could be artisan use. It's a trades job. If they're just simply dropping it off and picking them up, well, that'd be delivery. So we've talked about what artisan use is, but what do we have when we have units weighing over 5,000 kg? They're artisan use, but the weight puts them out of rate class 0112. ICBC has rate class 150 and 151 that includes artisan use. I used to call this the heavy artisan rate class, but 150 and 151 rate class isn't just rate for artisan use. So if we take a look, we'll see in 151, 150, it's over 5,000 kgs, and 151, where is it? It's over 9,000 kgs. But then it also allows septic tanks, snowplow use, water well, municipal government vehicles, parade floats, mobile canteen, motion picture vehicles, traveling amusement parks, search and rescue. Those aren't artisan vehicles, but that is because the first use on this allowed is artisan use and these other ones. Same with 151, you'll notice it also includes all the identical ones. It's just all comes down to the weight of the vehicle. So I put some pictures here. So absolutely, they qualify as 150 and 151. So for our customer that truly meets the definition of artisan use, but again, sometimes not all the goods are delivered. So here's a great example. So Rob is a roofer. He specializes in residential roofing repairs. And he also from time to time gives estimates. But because the pallets or roofing shingles and shakes, tiles are too heavy or bulky to fit in his truck, they are delivered separately. So Rob does carry in his vehicle the other goods to be installed. such as the roof vents, the flashing, the wind turbines. He also carries the tools and material to perform the duties. Do you think he can be rated artisan use? So, although Rob is not delivering the main project, most of the time, though, he's delivering the goods he's going to be installed. So in this case, artisan does apply. But if Rick were never delivering and installing any of the secondary goods, then no, it would not. So just because you carry a hammer and nails, but everything else is delivered, does not make you an artisan. That would be business use or to and from work. Here's another interesting scenario. I used to see this quite often in the Kootenays. If your customer is delivering fuel to others, then he is doing two different uses of the truck. And therefore, one needs to choose a rate class with the highest base premium. So is he driving to and from work, which would be 002, or is he 007, business use, because he's getting paid mileage? So lots of factors go in. So a reason I'm giving this example is I've seen vehicles over 5,000 kg where the truck belongs to the employee. He goes out to the bush with his tidy tank, parks his truck, and then operates the machinery. So the tidy tank, which created the weight over 5,000 kg, is allowing him to fill up his machines. The rate class would be 150 or 151. However, if he is filling up all the other machines, no, he wouldn't qualify as artisan use. Why? Because now he's delivering fuel. We don't get the privilege of seeing our customers' vehicles. So when a customer comes in and you've established that he is an artisan use, as in this case, so he could be 150 or 151, we really need to make sure we find out what is on that vehicle. So looking at this vehicle, what do you think we need to consider? So what we want to consider here is what is permanently attached. So we have a crane. Now, absolutely, the customer could insure this privately, but if he does that, then the private company has to take own damage on the entire rig. Because when you insure with ICBC, ICBC's value equals everything that's permanently attached to the vehicle. So in this case, that crane, which could be what, about $20,000, $30,000 piece of equipment on top of the value of that truck. So remember, when you're having those discussions with those customers, ask them what else is attached to the vehicle, because the value has to reflect everything that's permanently attached. And it's market value, not what the value is on their books. As a reminder, let's make sure we make those agents' comments. This is key. You have spent time with the customer, explored the vehicle use, coverages. Now you want to ensure you document your discussion. And we have different ways. So you have the ICBC system that allows you to put the comments in. You have broker's notes, which are capturing all the details. Remember, actions new note is where you add it. And perhaps you have your own management program. Some have a program called Epic or Signature. And there again, you can add extra notes in there. Now, if we were doing this live, I would be opening questions, answering. I have a lot of great cheat sheets on this. I've got help notes that I would love to share with you. So thank you for listening. And there are a lot of ways to learn more with me. So again, co-insurance, what if your customer has no own damage? How do they get paid? I have lots of courses available. I can do it one-on-one or I can do it as a group. So reach out at me at knowledgetraining@hotmail.com. Thank you for taking the time and listening. I'd always appreciate feedback, so reach out to me at knowledgetraining@hotmail.com, listed on the bottom. As well, remember the information and content I've provided today is subject to change, and you should always check the ICBC Procedures Manual, Policy and Procedures through ICBC, overrule any of the information I've given. Appreciate hearing from you and have a great day.